This next session is designed to show you how my GUI classes interact with one another to provide some automation to Windows. You don't necessarily need to use them in your own applications, but they are used extensively within mine, so it's useful to know how they work. Firstly, let's look at an application that's using some of my window classes. Here's a simple edit screen, and in the edit screen you'll notice there is a save and an undo and a close button. All the controls, you'll notice, have tooltips automatically. Now when I start typing in a control, the save button enables, and I could use the undo to clear it, type some more again, backspace over it, and when the control recognises it's not changed from before, it resets all the buttons. If I type something and try and close the window, I get messages about unsaved data, and I can cancel, go back to the window, save, change, and so on. This is just one example of how the controls react with one another. The other thing is that you'll notice that the fixed text has changed red to indicate that something has changed inside that control. The control itself will go yellow if in fact it's changed. So if I tab. So now you can also see what controls on the form have actually got new data in them. These and a range of other features reside in my subclass VO GUI Classes. Right, let's just remove that application for the moment. Now, let's start working through these. At the top level, one GCS system, you will find VO class extensions, and here you will see such things as control classes and VO object classes that have preset methods. Now, one like make available simply says enable or disable based on some value, and it will cycle through all controls on the form and make it enabled or disabled. Things like background. I have a standard disabled background color. For example, when you disable under themes items like a checkbox, they go to a horrible grey that's very hard to read. I can control the disabled colors, but you'll notice it uses the global object. I've mentioned this before. So this is where I store, at application startup, a whole range of settings that are usually stored in a config file. We have the config file. Let's have a quick look at the config file. Each application has its own config file, and you'll see that there are a whole range of settings which are stored in the config file. Every application also stores all its window positions if they've been chosen to save, so that when the application restarts, the user will get the size, column layout and columns that they want for each of their windows. They can clear this memory, they can stop it from working. There's a whole range of automated options to make this work. There's a class called a namelist class. This is used extensively inside my SQL Server classes, and it's based on a simple B browser concept of being a simple array server. This class namelist class is very important to the application because it will define all the server classes that we use. Let me show you one. Assign server classes. Oh, sorry, this is just the base. Let me go to a GUI class where that would have been defined. Now you'll see here is a simple array which lists each of the classes, their table name, their class name, and an English description. Now, no table that's not defined in here will be defined in the system as a system class. So my classes won't know about them if they're not in this list. If they're in this list, it will manage them. It will manage the structure, the indexes, the keys, and every aspect of the class from code. So for example, the staff table here has a table definition. And you'll see that it's a strongly typed class with accesses and assigns, a field spec, and this will look very much like a normal DBF field spec when it opens up. An array of fields, symbol name, string name, field spec, and some captions. They will generally have indexes, and this again is the standard DBF index syntax. And then it will have a range of other methods and other bits and pieces. So each one of these classes is mentioned in that array of servers. Your subclass version, these are system tables, common tables. You would have your own for your own application. I use the log file extensively. So this is an automatic log file where you pass in a range of parameters and it will automatically create the file, append to the file, or overwrite the file depending on what you specify. Then it acts like a file, so you can go to top, go bottom, seek, add a line, do a whole range of things. You just get a line count, for instance. The registry class I don't use much, but where you require to create keys directly, this will manage registry keys. It will also manage registry key trees. So if you delete a subkey, it will delete all the keys beneath that subkey and the data elements with it. I have some date functions and such things as end of calendar year, end of financial year, where it just does some very simple, straightforward maths. Some mathematical functions if you need trig functions. A lot of string handling. Now, for example, I've got some like add to SQL filter where it just does a bit of syntaxing to save you doing it in your code constantly. These system functions are very important. A lot of them are based on APIs. So shcopy, for example, uses the sh file op structure API to do file copies properly with confirmation boxes, collision boxes, files only options, all the regular things you could normally want to do. That's the system classes. The GUI classes, you'll see, are overridden for just about every single standard VO control and form and window type that we have. Now, one of the reasons for doing this, if you have a look in the push button, is very straightforward. It forces the control into an AMyControls array so that I can manage the controls on a form. And most controls have a reset method. The reset method will do something if it makes sense in the context of that control. So for example, where you set underlining and things on a font, you can call reset and it will clear it all back to default. Controls like a checkbox get more complex. I have a disabled checkbox because I do not like the way a checkbox, the colouring of a checkbox which is disabled. So I actually draw the checkbox deliberately. You'll see that the code is here, which actually draws the checkbox in the colours that I want for when it's disabled. So I will generally take away that grey foreground and use a black foreground. The other ones is there's a whole lot of controls based on write SLE, and then you'll find that there's all my window classes which have a lot of automation inside the windows. Where the buttons were enabling and disabling, that is these methods working, and this is where you can see the buttons are enabled or disabled based on various conditions. So all these controls and all these windows work very closely together, and if you use a window and inherit from my window, you will get that behavior by default. You don't have to do anything. The one requirement is that you do define a global object class, and I'll show you how to do that in a separate video.